Subscribe to Cheating Tales Lab. Now, let's begin. Snow fell thickly outside the window of our suburban house, each flake catching the warm glow of the Christmas lights lining the gutters. I watched my daughter Daisy's breath cloud the glass as she pressed her face against it, waiting for the last dinner guest to arrive. She was 12 now, with her mother's dark hair and my gray eyes my mother once said could see straight through lies. "Dad, when is Uncle Elias getting here?" Daisy asked, turning away from the window. I glanced at my watch. "Any minute now, sweetheart." My wife, Cheryl, stepped in from the kitchen, her face tense. "James, I still don't understand why you invited him. Your uncle hasn't spoken to your family in 20 years. "That's exactly why," I replied calmly. "He reached out and said he wanted to reconnect. It's Christmas." Cheryl's jaw tightened, though she forced a smile. "Well, Mother isn't going to be happy. You know how she feels about last-minute additions to her carefully planned dinners." I knew. Jacqueline Johnson, my mother-in-law, had strong opinions about every part of our lives. The neighborhood we lived in, the school Daisy attended, even the car I drove. In 15 years of marriage, I'd watched her conduct our lives like an orchestra, and Cheryl followed every cue. The doorbell rang. Daisy ran to the door before I could move, and I followed close behind. When she opened it, Uncle Elias stood there in a worn leather jacket, snow dusting his silver hair. He was 63, but carried himself like a man 20 years younger. His weathered, angular face broke into a genuine smile when he saw Daisy. "You must be my great-niece," he said warmly. "The last time I saw your dad, he wasn't much older than you." "I'm Daisy," she said, eyes wide with curiosity. "A beautiful name for a beautiful young lady." He looked past her to me. "James, you've done well for yourself." We hugged, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, a connection to my own blood. My father had died when I was 19, my mother 3 years later. Elias disappeared soon after her funeral, and I'd always wondered why. Standing in my doorway now, he felt like a lost piece of my past restored. "Come in," I said. "You remember Cheryl?" "Of course," he said, nodding politely at my wife, who returned a thin smile, "though I believe we only met once at your wedding."
"That's right," Cheryl said. "James, your mother-in-law is in the dining room. We should—" "The infamous Jacqueline," Elias said lightly, though something in his tone made Cheryl stiffen. "I've heard so much about her over the years." I noticed the subtle shift in his expression, a flicker of something knowing, almost predatory. Before I could ask about it, voices rose from the dining room. Jacqueline's sharp, commanding tone cut through the others. "Absolutely unacceptable to spring guests on me. I planned this meal for 8, not 9. We entered the dining room, where Jacqueline held court at the head of the table, her husband, Wallace, sitting quietly to her right. Cheryl's younger sister, Brandy, sat across from them with her husband, Marvin, both dressed in expensive, casual clothes that screamed country club. The table was set with Jacqueline's prized china, crystal glasses sparkling in the candlelight. Jacqueline's eyes locked on Elias. I saw the color drain from her face for a split second before her practiced smile returned. "Mr. Kent, what an unexpected surprise." "Mrs. Johnson," Elias replied, his smile not reaching his eyes. "You're looking well. Prosperity clearly suits you." There was an edge in his words that made Wallace shift uncomfortably. Jacqueline recovered quickly and gestured to an empty chair. "Please, sit. We were just about to begin." Dinner began with strained pleasantries. Jacqueline dominated the conversation, as always, talking about her charity work, the new addition to their lake house, and Brandy's husband's recent promotion. I'd heard versions of these stories for years, the Johnson family's endless list of achievements. My own work as a civil engineer was rarely mentioned unless Jacqueline wanted to criticize it. "James, dear," Jacqueline said as the main course was served, "have you thought any more about that position I mentioned? Wallace's friend at the firm is still looking, and the salary would be much better than what you earn now." "I'm happy where I am," I replied, the same answer I'd given countless times. "Yes, but think of Daisy's future. Private school tuition isn't getting any cheaper." "I just said he's happy," Cheryl cut in, though her tone suggested she agreed with her mother. Uncle Elias had been quiet through most of the meal, watching with the focus of a chess player studying the board. Now he set down his fork and looked straight at Daisy. "Tell me, Daisy," his voice carrying across the table, "did you enjoy the lake house I left you?" The room went silent. Cheryl's fork clattered onto her plate. Wallace froze with his wineglass halfway to his mouth. Brandy and Marvin exchanged quick looks, but Jacqueline's reaction caught my attention most. She choked on her wine, coughing hard as Wallace patted her back. Daisy frowned. "I don't have a lake house, Uncle Elias." Elias's smile widened, but there was no warmth in it now. "No? That's interesting, because 20 years ago, your great-great-grandmother, Plett Johnson, left very clear instructions in her will. Her lake house on Crystal Lake, worth about $2 million now, was to be held in trust for her first great-grandchild. That would be you, Daisy."
"That's enough," Jacqueline snapped, her face flushed. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, Elias Kent." "It's not a game," Elias said calmly, his voice cutting through hers like a blade. "I was there when Flett drafted that will. I witnessed it, and I know exactly what happened after she died." My mind spun. Cheryl's grandmother, Flett, had died 6 months before Daisy was born. I remembered the funeral, Jacqueline's tears, the reading of the will where the lake house supposedly went to Jacqueline and Wallace. I'd never questioned it. "This is ridiculous," Cheryl said, her voice shaking. "Grandmother left that house to my parents. Everyone knows that." "Everyone knows what they were told," Elias corrected. He turned to me, and I saw pity mixed with anger in his eyes. "James, your daughter has been robbed of her inheritance, and it's time you heard the truth." Jacqueline stood suddenly, her chair scraping the floor. "Wallace, we're leaving. I will not sit here and be accused of—" "Sit down, Mother," Cheryl said, though her words lacked strength. "Open your grandmother's closet tonight, the master bedroom in the house on Crystal Lake. You'll find everything there." "You have no right," Jacqueline shouted, her composure finally breaking. "That house is mine. Flett gave it to me because I took care of her, because you manipulated a dying woman and forged documents after her death," Elias finished evenly. "But I kept copies, Jacqueline. I kept everything." The truth hung in the air like smoke. Daisy looked around the table, trying to understand. Cheryl had gone pale, locking eyes with her mother in what looked like silent communication. Brandy stared at her plate, guilt clear on her face, and I sat there, as 15 years of my marriage suddenly made terrible sense. The way Jacqueline insisted we live near her, how she pushed me toward certain jobs and decisions, how she slowly, carefully separated me from my own family, even from Elias. "James," Cheryl began, reaching for my hand. I pulled away and looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months, maybe years. "Did you know?" The hesitation before she answered told me everything. "It's complicated." "It's theft," Elias said flatly. "It's fraud, and it's about to be exposed." I stood, my chair scraping loudly. "Daisy, get your coat. Uncle Elias, you're coming with us." I looked at my wife, the woman I loved, the life I'd built. "I don't know what you've been part of, Cheryl, but tonight I'm going to find out." "James, please," Cheryl said, her voice suddenly pleading. "We can talk about this like adults. There's no need for drama."
Drama? Anger burned through the shock. You stole from my daughter, from a child, and lived off that theft for 12 years while judging my career, my choices, my life. Wallace finally spoke, his voice weak. "Son, maybe we should all calm down, and I'm not your son," I said coldly. "I never was. I was just useful, wasn't I? Someone you could control." Elias stepped beside me and placed a hand on my shoulder. "The lake house is empty tonight. Flet's bedroom was left untouched under the terms of the real will, another thing Jacqueline couldn't change without raising suspicion. Everything you need is in that closet." Daisy returned with our coats, her eyes wide but trusting. She knew something was wrong, but she looked at me like she always had, like I could fix anything. And looking at her, I made a silent promise. Whatever I found tonight, whoever had lied to me, I would make it right. For Daisy, for my parents, for the family I'd let slip away while trying to please people who deceived me.
"Let's go," I said. As we headed for the door, Jacqueline's voice followed us, desperate now. "You can't prove anything. That wall was destroyed. There's no evidence." Elias paused and looked back at her, something close to satisfaction in his eyes. "That's where you're wrong, Jacqueline. I've waited 20 years for this, and I kept everything." The drive to Crystal Lake took 40 minutes along snow-covered back roads. Daisy sat quietly in the back seat, alert, while Elias rode beside me. The silence lasted nearly 20 minutes before I finally asked, "Why now? Why wait 20 years?" Elias stared out at the passing trees, their branches heavy with snow. "Because I needed you to see it for yourself. If I'd come to you 5 years ago, even 10, you would have believed Cheryl. You would have believed Jacqueline. They had you wrapped around their fingers. I saw it at your wedding. Your mother saw it too before she died." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. My mother knew? Not about the will exactly, but she knew the Johnsons were calculating. She tried to warn you, remember? She said Cheryl's family was too controlling, too involved in your relationship. The memory surfaced, sharp and painful. My mother pulling me aside 2 weeks before the wedding, her face creased with concern. "James, are you sure about this? That woman's mother treats you like a project, not a son-in-law." I brushed off her concern as wedding nerves, a mother struggling to let go of her son. "I should have listened," I said quietly. "You were in love, or thought you were. Sometimes it's hard to see the cage when someone builds it one bar at a time." He glanced back at Daisy. "But you gave me something worth waiting for, a great niece who deserves what's rightfully hers." "Dad?" Daisy's voice was small. "Is Mom in trouble?" I met her eyes in the rearview mirror. "I don't know yet, sweetheart, but whatever happens, you and I are going to be okay. I promise." The lake house appeared as we rounded a bend, a sprawling 2-story structure of cedar and stone, lights off, sitting on the frozen shoreline like a sleeping giant. I'd been there only twice in 15 years, both times for brief family gatherings, where Jacqueline made it clear this was her domain. Now I understood why we were never truly welcome. Elias pulled out a key. "I had this made from Pet's original. She gave me a set before she died, asked me to watch over things. I failed her for a long time, but not anymore." Inside, the house smelled of cedar and old memories. Dust covers draped the furniture in the main room. Elias led us upstairs to the master bedroom, switching on lights as we went. The room felt frozen in time. Pet's belongings still sat on the dresser, her reading glasses on the nightstand, a photo of her and her late husband hanging on the wall.
"The closet," Elias said, opening the double doors to reveal a walk-in space lined with clothes and boxes. At first, I saw nothing unusual. Then Elias reached up to a shelf above the hanging rod and pressed against it. A section of the back wall clicked and swung inward, revealing a hidden space about 4 feet wide. Inside sat a fireproof safe.
Pet was nobody's fool, Elias said, kneeling in front of it. She knew Jacqueline's daughter married a good man who was too honest for his own good. She knew she'd have a great-grandchild who deserved better than being raised by a family of vultures. He spun the combination lock, numbers I immediately recognized as Pet's birthday, so she prepared. The safe opened. Inside were manila folders, a lockbox, and a leather journal. Elias took out the journal and handed it to me. Read. I opened to the first page. Pet's handwriting, elegant despite her age, filled the lines. If you're reading this, I am gone, and Jacqueline has likely done exactly what I feared. My daughter is not bad at her core, but she is weak. Weak to greed, weak to status, weak to control. She will take what I have left for my great-grandchild. She will justify it and convince herself she deserves it more. But the truth is documented here. The real will, the trust documents, the deed to this house, which should pass to the first child of my grandchildren. I have made Elias Kent executor of this trust, the only person I trust to see it honored. Page after page detailed Pet's worries about her daughter, her observations of how Jacqueline manipulated her family, and her hopes for her great-grandchild. It was heartbreaking and infuriating at the same time. "Dad?" Daisy stood beside me, looking at the documents Elias was now spreading across the bed. "I don't understand. Why would Grandma Jacqueline steal from me?" How do you explain greed to a 12-year-old? How do you tell your child that her grandmother valued money over her own blood? Some people, Elias said gently, get so used to wanting more that they forget what truly matters. Your great-great-grandmother, Pet, understood that. She wanted you to have something real. This house, the land, the investments tied to it, they're worth close to $3 million now. That's yours, Daisy, your college fund, your future, your security. I pulled out my phone and photographed every document. The original will, dated 6 months before Pet's death, clearly stating the lake house and associated trust were for her first great-grandchild. The trust papers naming Elias as executor, the deed with Pet's handwritten notes, and most damning of all, a copy of the forged will Jacqueline submitted to probate, with margin notes where Pet had documented every difference. She knew, I breathed. Before she died, she knew Jacqueline was planning this. Pet had a stroke 3 weeks before she passed. She couldn't speak and could barely move her right hand, but her mind was sharp. She watched Jacqueline bring in her own lawyer, watched her try to change everything. Pet couldn't stop it, so she made sure I'd know where to find the truth. My phone buzzed. Cheryl, then Jacqueline, then Cheryl again. I ignored them all. "What do we do now?" I asked. Elias's expression hardened. "Now we make them pay. But not just in court. That would be too clean, too simple. People like Jacqueline, like Cheryl, if she's been complicit, they care about reputation, status, control. We take all of it. I want them to hurt," I admitted, surprised by the venom in my own voice, the way they hurt my daughter, the way they manipulated our lives. "They will," Elias said gently, "but we do this smart. We do it thoroughly. When we're done, they won't just lose the house and the money. They'll lose everything built on that foundation of lies." I looked at Daisy, at her trusting face, then at the documents spread across the bed. "Tell me what to do." Elias smiled, and for the first time I saw the ruthlessness beneath his kindness. "First, we copy everything. Then we contact some old friends of mine, people who know how to dig up buried truths. Your mother-in-law has been living off your daughter's money for 12 years. Let's find out exactly how." We stayed at the lake house that night. I called a friend who owed me a favor, Jeremy Ho, a forensic accountant I'd worked with on a bridge construction fraud case 3 years ago. He arrived near midnight with his laptop and a predatory gleam in his eye. "You weren't kidding about the paper trail." Jeremy said, photographing documents with a professional camera. "This is beautiful. Clear intent, clear fraud, clear damages. But you want more than just a court case, right?" "I want everything," I said. "Where the money went, what they bought, who else knew." "Give me 72 hours, Jeremy said. "I'll trace every dollar." Daisy fell asleep on the couch, wrapped in one of Pet's old quilts. I watched her, my mind replaying 15 years of marriage, trying to separate truth from performance. Had Cheryl ever really loved me, or was I just convenient, stable, easy to control? Elias sat across from me, sipping whiskey from Pet's cabinet. "You're wondering if any of it was real."
"How did you know?" "Because I went through something similar," he said. "Different details, same betrayal." He took a drink. "My wife, your Aunt Margaret, came from old money. Her family never approved of me. I was too working class. For 10 years, I tried to fit their mold. Then I found out they were siphoning money from a business we built together, hiding assets, preparing to push me out. What did you do?" "I walked away, took the hit, started over at 40 with nothing but my truck and my tools." He met my eyes. "Best decision I ever made. But you have something I didn't. You have a daughter worth fighting for, and evidence that will hold up in court." My phone buzzed again, a voicemail from Cheryl, her voice cracking. "James, please, we need to talk. Mother's having a breakdown. She says Uncle Elias is trying to destroy the family. Please come home so we can fix this." I deleted it. "When your mother died," Elias said quietly, "she made me promise something. She said if I ever saw you losing yourself to that family, I should step in. I've watched from a distance for years, James, watched you shrink. Tonight should have happened when Daisy was born, but I hesitated. I thought maybe Cheryl would do the right thing, but she didn't. None of them did. They planned to keep it forever, then give it to Daisy at 18 and claim it was a gift from Jacqueline." He leaned forward. "That's why we can't just sue and walk away. We expose them to everyone who enabled them, their friends, their club, their church. We burn it all down." A dark part of me thrilled at the idea, but I looked at Daisy and felt the weight of responsibility. I need to do this right, for her future. Then we do both. We get her inheritance back, and we make sure they can never hurt anyone again. By morning, we had a plan. Jeremy was already pulling records. Elias contacted a lawyer he trusted, and I made a decision that changed everything. I was filing for divorce, not out of spite, but because trust was gone. Without trust, marriage was just paperwork. My phone rang. "Brandy." I answered. "James, thank God. Please, you have to understand. Mother said Grandma changed her mind, that the last will was what she really wanted." "Brandy, your grandmother had a stroke. She couldn't speak. How exactly did she say this?" Silence. Then, "Mother said Grandma squeezed her hand. That was consent." The audacity stole my breath. "And you believed that?" "We wanted to," Brandy whispered. "The money made things easier. Marvin's business was struggling. Mother helped us." "You stole from a child?" "I know," she said, crying. "Please, I'll testify. Just don't take this public." "No," I said. "This goes public. You'll destroy the family. Your mother did that 12 years ago." I hung up. Elias nodded. "Now they will panic. Now they will make mistakes." He was right. The next 48 hours were chaos, calls, threats, bargains. I ignored them all. When I explained everything to Daisy, she surprised me. "Then I want it back," she said. "Not because I care about money, but because it's not fair." "We'll get it back," I promised. "Every penny." "Good," she said fiercely. "She's always been mean to you." That broke something in me. On the third day, Jeremy called. "James, you need to sit down. The rabbit hole goes deep." I put him on speaker. The trust was worth about $1.2 million when Petty died. Jacqueline has pulled around $400,000 in cash alone since then.
$400,000? I repeated, stunned. It gets worse, Jeremy said. Much worse. She had also taken out a home equity line of credit against the lake house, another $300,000. That money was used to bail out Brandy and Marvin's business 3 years ago when they were on the brink of bankruptcy. Then there was the country club membership she purchased with trust funds, the car she leased, the loans she issued to various family members.
How much total? Elias asked. She's depleted the trust by approximately $850,000. The property itself has appreciated, so the overall value is still around $2.8 million, but the liquid assets are gone. And she never paid taxes on any of the withdrawals. The IRS is going to be very interested in this. I felt sick. So, even if we win in court, the money's gone? Not necessarily, Jeremy replied. We can go after Jacqueline and Wallace's personal assets to recover damages, and if Brandy and Marvin received funds fraudulently, they're liable too. There's also the criminal side. Estate fraud, tax evasion, possibly identity theft since she signed trust documents as Daisy's guardian without your knowledge or consent. Build the case, I said. Everything. Criminal and civil. I want them prosecuted to the fullest extent. After Jeremy hung up, Elias let out a low whistle. She really drained it dry, all while sitting at your dinner table acting like she was doing you a favor just by tolerating you. What's our next move? We file a civil suit for fraud and theft, a criminal complaint with the prosecutor, a motion to freeze all of Jacqueline and Wallace's assets pending investigation. We hit them with everything at once, overwhelm them before they can coordinate a defense. And Cheryl? Elias's expression softened slightly. That's your call, James. If she knowingly participated, she's liable. If she stayed silent, that's different. But either way, the marriage is over, isn't it? I nodded. I'll never trust her again. She watched her mother steal from our daughter and said nothing. That's unforgivable. Then we separate her from the main case, Elias said. Make her cooperate in exchange for reduced liability. Use her testimony to take Jacqueline down. He pulled out his phone. I'll call the lawyer. We'll file Monday morning. That gave us 3 days. 3 days to prepare for a war that would tear apart everything I'd built in 15 years of marriage. 3 days before I became the enemy of the family I'd spent years trying to please. I spent those 3 days documenting everything. Every time Jacqueline pushed me toward a job I didn't want. Every criticism of my parenting. Every decision she made about our lives without consulting me. Writing it all down, I finally saw the pattern, a systematic effort to control and diminish me while elevating herself and her family. Sunday evening, I took Daisy out to dinner, just the two of us. She ordered spaghetti and meatballs, her favorite. We talked about everything except the storm ahead. Are you scared? She asked softly as we finished dessert. A little, I admitted. This is going to be hard. People might say mean things. Your mom will be upset. But we're doing the right thing. Yes, Daisy said firmly. We're doing the right thing. Then I'm not scared. You'll protect me. You always do. Her faith in me was humbling and terrifying. I couldn't promise how this would end, but I could promise I'd try. For her. For my parents. For the man I used to be, before Jacqueline Johnson reshaped me into something more convenient for her. Monday morning arrived cold and clear. Elias picked us up at 7 and drove us to the county courthouse. Our lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Hope Glenn, met us on the steps with a briefcase full of documents. This is going to make waves. The Johnsons have a lot of friends here. Expect pushback. Let 'em push. We have the truth. We filed everything at once. The civil suit, the criminal complaint, the divorce petition, the motion to freeze assets. By noon, word was spreading through the legal community.
By evening, Jacqueline had hired one of the most expensive firms in the state. The battle had begun. The first week was brutal. Jacqueline's attorney, a slick corporate lawyer named Carrie Sandoval, filed motion after motion to dismiss the case, seal the records, claim the statute of limitations had expired. Judge Hope Glenn, no relation to our lawyer, shut down every attempt. Meanwhile, Jeremy's forensic work delivered results. He traced trust withdrawals to specific purchases: a Mercedes for Brandy, a boat for Wallace, $150,000 in renovations to Jacqueline's primary residence, every dollar documented. The local paper caught wind of the story. Prominent family faces fraud allegations. By the second week, it was all anyone talked about. Cheryl's phone exploded with messages from friends and acquaintances. Women who once admired Jacqueline now whispered about her in grocery aisles. Cheryl showed up at the lake house one evening where Daisy and I were staying. I almost didn't let her in.
5 minutes, I said. She looked awful. Red eyes, unwashed hair, the same clothes I'd seen 2 days earlier.
James, please, we can fix this. Mother's willing to return the money, all of it. We can make this go away quietly.
It's too late for quiet.
It's not. We can settle. Please think about Daisy.
What this is doing to her? I pulled away. Your mother stole millions from our daughter, and you want me to worry about consequences?
I didn't know,
Cheryl sobbed.
I didn't know the full extent.
When did you find out the truth? She hesitated.
2 years ago.
2 years. 2 years of lies. Get out, I said quietly. You chose your mother over your daughter. She left sobbing. I felt nothing but resolve. The criminal investigation moved quickly. The prosecutor, Stacy Archer, built a strong case. Fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, forgery. Brandy broke first. Facing charges, she testified against her mother. Wallace followed, choosing self-preservation. The trial began 4 months later. The courtroom was packed. Jacqueline sat at the defense table in an expensive suit, her composure cracking under pressure. The evidence was overwhelming. Documents, testimony, expert analysis. Jeremy walked the jury through every fraudulent transaction. On the third day, Jacqueline snapped.
It should have been mine, she screamed. I earned it.
That child, the prosecutor replied calmly, was your granddaughter. The jury deliberated 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Jacqueline was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison, full restitution totaling $3.2 million, and a permanent ban from handling estates. The IRS pursued its own charges. Daisy watched her grandmother led away. Great-Grandma Pet would be proud, she whispered. She was right. 6 months later, assets were seized and sold. The lake house and remaining trust transferred to Daisy, with me as trustee. The total value came to just under $3 million. My divorce was finalized quietly. I got full custody. Cheryl moved away. Elias stayed. He made the lake house a home again. 1 year later, we celebrated together. Snow fell softly. Daisy talked about using her inheritance to help others. Pet's legacy lived on, not in money, but in courage. And as the sun rose over Crystal Lake, I knew we were finally free.